Most people assume their homeowner's insurance covers everything that can go wrong with their house: fire, theft, wind damage, and flooding. That last one is where millions of Americans find out the hard way that they were wrong. Here's the truth. Standard homeowner's insurance does not cover flooding. Not from a hurricane, not from a nearby river overflowing, not from heavy rainfall that overwhelms your neighborhood drainage system. If water comes from outside your home and damages your property, your standard homeowner's policy almost certainly will not pay for it. This is one of the most common and most expensive misconceptions in the entire insurance industry, and it catches people completely off guard at the worst possible moment, right after they've lost everything. Let's break down exactly what homeowners insurance does cover when it comes to water, what it doesn't cover, and what you need to do if you live anywhere near a flood risk area. First, let's talk about what your standard homeowner's policy actually covers when it comes to water damage. Homeowners insurance typically covers what's called sudden and accidental water damage. This means if a pipe bursts inside your home, if your washing machine malfunctions and floods your laundry room, or if a storm damages your roof and rain gets in through the opening, that type of water damage is generally covered. The key distinction is where the water comes from. If the water originates inside your home due to a sudden failure or accident, you're likely covered. If the water comes from outside your home, you're almost certainly not. Now let's talk about flooding specifically. Flood damage is excluded from virtually every standard homeowner's insurance policy in the United States. This isn't a technicality buried in the fine print. It's a fundamental feature of how homeowners insurance is designed. The insurance industry considers flooding a separate and distinct risk category that requires its own dedicated policy. To get flood coverage, you need to purchase a separate flood insurance policy. The most common source for flood insurance in the United States is the National Flood Insurance Program, also known as the NFIP, which is managed by FEMA. Private flood insurance options also exist and have been growing in recent years. Here's something that surprises a lot of people. You don't have to live in a high-risk flood zone to buy flood insurance. Anyone can purchase it. And given that nearly 20% of flood insurance claims come from properties outside of high-risk flood zones, that's worth thinking about seriously. If you do live in a high-risk flood zone and you have a federally backed mortgage, flood insurance isn't optional. Your lender requires it. But millions of homeowners in moderate and low-risk areas skip flood insurance entirely because they assume either that flooding won't happen to them or that their homeowner's policy has them covered. Both of those assumptions can be catastrophically wrong. Let's talk about cost. Flood insurance through the NFIP averages around $700 to $900 per year for most homeowners, though costs vary significantly based on your location, your home's elevation, and the amount of coverage you choose. Private flood insurance can sometimes be cheaper depending on your specific situation and risk profile. Compare that to the average flood claim, which runs into the tens of thousands of dollars. Even a few inches of water inside your home can cause $25,000 or more in damage. A more serious flood event can easily exceed $100,000. Against those numbers, $700 to $900 a year looks very different. Now let's talk about a few other water-related scenarios that confuse homeowners. What about sewer backup? If your sewer line backs up and sends water into your basement, standard homeowners insurance typically does not cover that either. However, many insurers offer a sewer backup endorsement you can add to your existing policy for a relatively small additional premium. If you have a basement, this is worth looking into seriously. What about a sump pump failure? If your sump pump fails during a heavy rainstorm and your basement floods as a result, that's also typically excluded from standard coverage. Again, an endorsement or rider can sometimes add this protection. What about water damage from a slow leak? If a pipe has been slowly leaking inside your wall for months and eventually causes significant damage, your insurer may deny that claim on the grounds that it was a maintenance issue rather than a sudden accident.